Hello, my name is Alyssa Thomas, and today we will be discussing the pros and cons for deaf students to go to their home school versus going to a state school. To begin this podcast, we will be talking about the pros and cons of deaf students going to their home school. When I say home school, I mean the school that they are normally districted in. A pro is that when they go to their home school, they get experience interacting with hearing people. Since we live in a mostly hearing world, this is very good for the students. They also get to go to school with kids that live near them. When they go to state schools, that's not always the case. On top of that, they get to get home at a reasonable time. Some of the cons for deaf students to go to their home school is that they can stick out like a sore thumb. They are very different. A couple ways that they are different is that they have an interpreter who follows them everywhere they go. They are very dependent on this interpreter. Some students won't even come to school if their interpreter can't make it to school. This also makes them anxious to communicate with their other peers. Not everyone knows American Sign Language, so it could be very hard to communicate. The visual aid is also taken away from the student because they are focused on the interpreter the whole class period rather than the teacher. Now we will discuss some of the pros and cons for hearing students when deaf students go to their home school. A pro is that they get to experience interacting with deaf people. Deaf people have a different culture and a different language, and this gives hearing people the opportunity to be introduced to it. One of the cons is that the interpreter could be very distracting to the other students. Now we will talk about the pros and cons for deaf students going to a deaf school. A big pro is the communication access. Everyone knows sign language, so you don't have to be afraid to talk to anyone. You don't have to feel like you can't answer a question because your interpreter has to tell the class for you. Another thing is that you get a lot more opportunities when you're deaf if you go to a deaf school. Everyone's deaf, so they already have the accommodations for sports. They have plays that you can be in and a lot more leadership opportunities. And since you have all of these pluses, you also feel more comfortable. You get to focus more on your schoolwork and less on the stress of the social aspect. A couple of the cons is that the deaf community is very small. Everyone knows everyone, and your reputation is very important. If you do one wrong thing, the whole community can know and will not forget. When they go to school with all deaf people, then they do not get the experience with hearing students or hearing adults. This can be very bad since they do live in a mostly hearing world. They will have to interact with hearing people, and it might be more stressful and scary since they're not used to doing it. Another big thing is that there is only one state school in each state. Therefore, some students have to drive a far distance to get to their schools. This means that they have to wake up earlier and get home much later, leaving no time for homework or extracurricular activities. Some students stay at their schools, but this means that they have less time with their families. This is also hard for them to make friends because their friends might live so far away that they only get to see them at school. Thank you for listening to my podcast, and have a great day.